Ladies and gentlemen, welcome by revolutionizing transport at the speed of sound. And what a great honor to be here. But before I'll start my presentation, I would like to show you this graph. And this graph shows you the developments of the computer. And what you see here are the amount of transistors on a square millimeter. And as you can see, from 1970 till now, this amount has increased over more than 100,000 times, which means that the sector in this technique, the development went really, really fast. But if we take a look in the world of transportation, in 1970 we were already flying in Boeing 747s, and of course they are a bit better now, but mainly just they added more computers. And we're also driving in the trains as we still drive sometimes nowadays. So in the world of transportation, nothing really much significantly has changed, although there is need for a faster and more efficient way of transportation. So that means that it is time for innovation. Well, my name is Tim. I'm the team captain of the Delft Hyperloop team, and I would love to prepare you to this new mode of transportation and to share our story with you. And the way I do that is to first show the current transportation problems. And actually there's one picture that really captures most of the problems of the current transportation systems. And that is this picture. Because here you see a guy, he's cycling against the wind. And as you can see from his face, it takes him a lot of power to do this. And that is just because he's pushing away the air particles. But not only this guy is doing that, no, every single transportation system is continuously pushing away air particles, making them use a lot of energy. And we all know that energy costs money. Plus thirdly, just a single leaf on a railway can lay down the whole transportation system. And that is also not something that we want. So what do we ideally see? That's a transportation system that is more efficient, that has lower cost, and has a higher reliability. And that's exactly where the Hyperloop kicks in. The Hyperloop is sort of a train running in a tube, but this is not a normal tube. On that tube, there are vacuum pumps attached. And those vacuum pumps, they suck out the air till there was only 0.1% of the air density left. And because there is so less air in the tube, it's possible to travel really fast through that tube. And because there is almost no resistance, you just need a linear motor at the beginning and the end of your trajectory to accelerate and decelerate your vehicle. And at 1% during the route to give yourself a boost to stay on speed. And that means that the other 99% of your route, you don't need any propulsion for your transportation system. And that also makes the cost for the infrastructure very, very low. And with this system, it's possible to travel, for instance, from Amsterdam to Paris in just 30 minutes. So that will be quite awesome, right? You can live in Amsterdam and work in Paris, for example. And when I share this story, I always get one question. And that's the following question. Can I handle those speeds? Well, the answer is, yes, you can. You don't need to worry about the speeds, because these are the acceleration that exert forces on your body. And those accelerations we can control. We can control to what's convenient for people. So you can compare it, for example, what you will feel like accelerating in an airplane, for example. So don't worry about the speeds. Well, if you take a look to the energy consumption, and you want to travel from Amsterdam to Paris, and you compare the amount of energy needed to transport one person to Paris with the amount of energy stored in a Tesla, you would just need 10% of the energy stored in a Tesla to get you from Amsterdam to Paris in just 30 minutes. So that really shows how energy efficient this system can be. And when you compare the cost of the Hyperloop infrastructure, and you compare it with the cost of high-speed railway, the cost of the Hyperloop system can be half of that of high-speed railway due to the simplistic and the lightweight infrastructure. But that's not all. Cargo can also be transported in the Hyperloop system. What we see nowadays is that a lot of traffic jam caused by trucks. But when the Hyperloop system can transport cargo, times like this will be over. So this all sounds quite nice and good. Well, why did nobody ever came up earlier with this? Yes, they did. Already from the 1900s, people were thinking about transporting stuff in tubes. But it never really came off the ground until this guy, Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla Motors and SpaceX, has written a proposal about a Hyperloop system, which you can see here. And when he read this, I was part of the Formula student team of the TU Delft, where we were building electric race cars, racing against other universities, try to beat them and be the best. And when we were part of this team, we heard about the Hyperloop concept from Elon Musk, and we already said to each other, whoa, this is a great concept, but how nice would it be if there would come a Hyperloop competition as well? But 1 year later, this became reality because SpaceX organized the Hyperloop pod competition. And the idea behind it is quite simple. SpaceX builds the test tube, and student teams can build a Hyperloop prototype to race against each other and see which Hyperloop is the best. And because we were already talking about a Hyperloop competition back then, just 1 week later, the Delft Hyperloop team was formed. So we went to an office, already started dreaming about how we could win this competition. But back then we were with 5 students. And we realized that with the 5 of us, we would not gonna make it, so we needed more students. And we thought, well, around 30 students are needed to make this a reality. So we were recruiting amongst the university, and we got almost 200 applicants of people willing to join us. And out of those 200 applicants, we have selected the most motivated, the most dedicated, the most passionate students to win this competition. And here we are now with a team of 30 students covered by all of the faculties from the TU Delft. So that means that every area of technical expertise is within our team. And that makes it also possible to realize such a high-tech project in such a short amount of time. Well, let me take you guys back to the beginning, when we were just fresh. You see, we made a lot of professionalism during the year. When we started with our team, we needed to design our Hyperloop prototype. So, how do you start? Exactly with this. Nothing. Because never ever a Hyperloop system has been built before. So you will start with making some sketches, but you realize that that's not the proper way to get to a nice concept. So what did we do? Well, we went into the room with a blackboard and written down all of the different functions that a Hyperloop system has to fulfill. Functions like acceleration, deceleration, emergency braking, storing your energy. And then finding solutions for all of those different concepts. And then can combine those solutions to get to full Hyperloop concepts. And those concepts, they needed to have some design criteria like low cost, low energy usage, being safe, and being fast. And out of those different concepts we found out, we've chosen the best Hyperloop concept back then, which you can see here. And if you compare this with the original proposed Hyperloop concept, you see some difference. This is the original concept with an air cushion and a big compressor in the front. And we are like hanging with some magnets on top, with no compressor at front. And when you compare those systems, already from a physical point of view, it doesn't make really much sense to float on an air cushion with a big compressor in an almost airless tube. So quite quickly we already came up with a concept better than the original proposed one. So we were quite happy with it. And then we started working on that concept, and it all went well until this moment when SpaceX announced their test track specifications. The idea that we had with our Hyperloop hanging on top of a tube with its magnets, they were not going to make. So we had 2 options. Or we stayed stubborn and were really pushing SpaceX to build what we want them to build, or we just let it go and make the best what they want to build. And at the end, we find a bit of both working. They said we're not going to make the magnet system on top, but we're going to shift it to the bottom, and you can float with your magnets at the bottom. So this is our next concept. The magnets moved till the bottom of our vehicle. And if you take a look how our design was back then in the digital world, in the computer, you can see it like this. Very simplistic and schematic, especially when you look to the suspension system, for example. And the reason why it's so simplistic and schematic is that we can really quickly shift with all those different parts and components and iterate very quickly to the most ideal solution. So we continued the designing, and eventually our design was ready, and we've presented at the TU Delft last January. And there we've presented with a video, which I would love to share with you now today as well. So ladies and gentlemen, the Delft Hyperloop design. Enjoy. Delft Hyperloop design, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the applause. Well, this design, I would like to zoom in a bit on the technical details, but I will keep it as simplistic as possible. How our design works, what I already said, we are floating inside a tube. And the way that works is like this. We have permanent magnets in our undercarriage, and those permanent magnets, they move over an aluminum sheet. And due to that movement, something funny happens, because you create a repulsive force, which makes it possible to levitate. And this is the way how it goes. Already, at 30 kilometers an hour, we can levitate with our vehicle. And during the design, there was also one other question that we were really struggling with hard. And that was this question: how do you slow down at extreme speeds? Because you cannot really grab something and slow down by that. So you need to find another way. And eventually we did. And therefore, I would like to zoom a bit more into our undercarriage. And here you can see our braking and stabilization system. And we also call this system our guns. And when I rotate them, you probably see why. Because they look like guns a bit, you see? But these guns, they're quite nice, because they're also our permanent magnets, and they are centered around the center beam in the track. And we now know that when you move those magnets along aluminium, you create a repulsive force. So what happens when you go a bit off center? You are centered automatically to get you a very stable, smooth ride. But this is not the nicest thing about this design, because we can also slide those magnets towards the center beam of the track, inducing a lot of drag force, making it possible to get to a safe stop with your vehicle, still without any mechanical contact, no friction, no wear, and therefore also low maintenance cost for your full-scale system. And this design we've presented at the Texas A&M University among with 124 other teams. And here you can see our booth, how we presented our design. And actually it was very crowded at a design competition, but the Delft booth was also one of the most crowdiest booths there. Mainly because of our nice design, but we also had some lovely stroopwafels to really convince those Americans. And this went quite well, because there we have won the POD Innovation Award, which we were really proud on. And we ended up second in the overall design and build category, just after the MIT team. So you can see our prize a bit more in detail, signed by Elon Musk. I even had a chance to have a little chat with Elon after the competition, which was really nice. But this was just the beginning, because the real work actually needed to start, and that was building our Hyperloop prototype. And what you will see now is a quick slideshow of this building process. So when we came back, the wooden molds were already produced. We were making some carbon fiber molds out of them, putting in the oven, have our carbon fiber molds finished, making the aluminum parts by milling them, by lathing them, get some nice parts for the suspension. The carbon fiber work continued. Sometimes you have to do some really acrobatical poses to reach for the right spot with your carbon fiber. But this also was quite intense work. And here, for example, you can see Luke. He was taking every moment that he could to take a sleep, to work even harder afterwards. But then the result came there. Our prototype was taking shape. Still some work at the inside had to be done. And Luke was like living for a week, something like in this cocoon, to make the finishing touches. But then all of the parts were coming together, and it was time to show our vehicle to the world. And we have done this the 30th of June. And when we wanted to do this, we wanted to do it in front of a workshop. Here you see a workshop with a nice big square in front. So we ordered a big stage, a big screen, some nice tables, some parasols to let the people stand in the shadow. Because we expected that it would be really nice weather. But as you can imagine, the weather forecasters became very bad when the time passed. So we needed to switch. We had an option to go to another location, to a theater, for example, and cancel the whole event there, or to find something to keep everyone dry. Well, eventually, we chose for the last option, to find something to keep everyone dry. So 1 week before, we were running very, very fast to order a big tent to keep everyone dry. And this worked, because we had one. And everybody could stand nicely and dry in this tent during our unveiling. And then it was time to unveil our vehicle. And we've also made a short video of the unveiling of our vehicle, which I would love to share with you today, now as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Delft Hyperloop prototype. Enjoy. Thank you again. I really love the audience today, so you're doing a great job, guys. And we did this unveiling. We did this unveiling together with the Minister of Economic Affairs, Henk Kamp. And this was really, really nice. Here you can see a bit more detailed picture of a vehicle. The team standing behind the vehicle, prouder than ever, because this was the moment when, like, a year of hard working really, really paid off. And we even managed to get in the news a bit. And what was quite funny, that also in the news of Madagascar they covered us, so we also had some international exposure. So we really, really liked it. So here you can see some more detailed picture of our suspension system and our undercarriage. But I guess you guys are all quite curious, how would this be in the real world? Well, for example, this can look like this. The vehicle just entered the station, doors open, you're ready to get in for the next ride. Or a picture more like this on a bit bigger station. But how would it be if you will sit inside the Hyperloop? Well, that will look a bit like this. You have some spacious, luxurious seats, and not normal windows, but virtual windows, to give you that feeling that you're not in such an enclosed system. So now you guys might think, well, you're there, right? You've designed your vehicle, you've presented, you've built it, you're there. Well, actually, we're not, because we also wanted to do some testing before we go to California to make sure that our vehicle really works. And when we first wanted to do some testing, we've designed this beauty of a test setup. Like a very big construction with enormous high-speed spinning wheels to simulate the speeds that you will encounter in the tube. And when the development process became further, we realized, well, this is a lot of work, takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money, needed a lot of space to do this, so can we make it more simplistic? Well, we could. So therefore, we have changed our test setup to two smaller test setups, one for our stabilization and braking system, and one for our levitation system. And here you can see the test setup for our stabilization system. And the way that works is that this disc is spinning, and those magnets are offside those discs, and we can measure the forces and see how they compare with our models. And something quite funny, when we had this disc spinning in our workshop at around 400 kilometers an hour, we realized, well, there's a huge amount of energy stored in that disc. When something goes wrong, it will just go through all the walls in the building. So we would really not want to have that. So therefore we changed this test setup into a steel container to make it very safe that if something would happen, the costs were minimal. And luckily up till today nothing has happened, so we're also very happy with that. And we made a small video of how our stabilization and braking system is working, which you can see here. This disc is now spinning with around 400 kilometers an hour. And as you will see in a few seconds, here we go, those magnets, they are moving towards the center beam, making this disc come to a stop. And they are controlling the movement. And as you see that in a few seconds, the disc has come to a safe stop. So therefore we know that our stabilization and braking system works. But I also told about a levitation test setup, which you see here. And this is a horizontal spinning disc instead of a vertical one. And we also made a video of that. But that goes quite quickly from the beginning, so pay good attention at the beginning. The disc is now getting up to speed, and our suspension system starts to levitate. It's like magic, right? You just move some aluminum under a magnet and you get levitation. So that's great. So, I guess you guys now have the question, what's yet to come? Well, the end of October we'll fly with our vehicle towards California to do some more test setups, to do some more testing. We're entering a vacuum chamber and we have a small scale test track which we can test our vehicle on. And then the end of January, the moment is there when we have our run of glory, and hopefully there we are the fastest, the safest, the most energy efficient, have the least amount of vibrations to win this competition and beat the MIT team. There we go for. But this is not it. This is not it. Because I would like to take you guys back to the beginning where it all started, with the development of the computers, where we saw that this development went really, really fast. Well, I believe that in the world of transportation, this can also go very fast. And therefore that it's possible to already in 2025 have it possible to have a full-scale Hyperloop system completely integrated in the current environment. And maybe it's so well integrated that you don't even see it, but here it actually is. And now we are making the first fundamental steps to realize this by designing, building, and testing a half-scale Hyperloop prototype, all in just 1 year. And that's what I call revolutionizing transport at the speed of sound. Thank you.